Good morning to one and all for the today's morning session for metal cutting and forming. So today I will be discussing about module 4, that is okay module 4. In that we will be discussing about module 4, that is mechanical working of metals. Mechanical working of metals, that is module 4. Today I am going to start with module 4, that is mechanical working of metals. So first of all we'll go through the syllabus, whatever the contents of the syllabus. Afterwards we will be uh, proceeding further. So first of all we'll discuss what is introduction to metal forming processes and classification of metal forming processes, hot working and cold working of the metals. In this we'll be discussing, in this module we are discussing very important things, that is forging, smith forging, drop forging and press forging. This all will be discussing, that is types of forgings and forging equipment, defects in the forging. And next one will be rolling process, angle of bite, types of rolling mills, variables of rolling processes and rolling defects. And one more thing we are going to discuss, that is drawing and extrusion. In that, drawing of wires, rods and pipes, and variables of drawing processes, difference between drawing and extrusion, and various types of extrusion process. This much we are going to cover in this module. So first of all we'll get to know, that is what is metal forming process. What is metal forming process? Metal forming process, it is shown in this all is shown in the classification of metal forming. Before going to this classification, we'll discuss what is metal forming process. Metal forming process, that large set of manufacturing processes in which the material is deformed. What I'm saying, all are getting? No, large set of manufacturing processes in which the materials is deformed plastically to take the shape of the die geometry. It is deformed plastically to take the shape of the die geometry. The tools used for such deformation are called die, punch, etc. Depending on the type of the process we are using the tools. Plastic deformations, in that stresses beyond yield strength. Plastic deformation is nothing but stresses beyond yield strength of the workpiece material is required. Categories, that is bulk metal forming and sheet metal forming. So in this you all are going to study metal. What do you mean by exactly plastic deformation? Elastic, there are two deformations, elastic deformation and plastic deformations. So plastic deformation is nothing but elastic can be regain its original position, but plastic cannot regain its original position. So the difference between elastic and plastic is this the thing. Next we'll be discussing about classification of basic sheet metal. Before going to this, you have first of all see this. In this, what all contents in the metal forming process? You all can see this is the metal forming. In that, bulk deformation and sheet metal working is there. Under that subcategories, that is rolling for process, forging process, extrusion process, wire and bar drawing process, bending operations, deep or cup drawing, shearing processes, miscellaneous, that is, and last one is stretching. Next one, classification of basic sheet forming processes. In this, classification of basic sheet forming processes, first one is bending, second one deep drawing, shearing, and next one that is rolling, forging, extrusion and wire drawing. So we'll discuss one at a time. That is, first we'll discuss about bending. Okay, first we'll discuss about this bending. So sheet form, before going to the bending, we'll be discussing briefly sheet forming. Sheet metal forming involves forming and cutting operations performed on metal sheets, strips and coils. The surface area to volume ratio to the starting metal is relatively high. Tools include punch, die that are used to deform the sheets. Okay. Next one, we'll be discussing about bending. So what is bending? In this, the sheet material is strained. In this figure, sheet metal is strained by a punch to give a bend shape. Angle shape, usually in straight axis. Here you all can see the workpiece. This portion is the workpiece which is shown, which is placed under the punch and it is bent in an angular position. Okay, you are getting what I am telling. Next one, we will be discussing about deep drawing. Deep drawing is also known as cup drawing. Okay, deep drawing is also known as cup drawing because it is in a shape of cup. You all can see the shape of the cup here. Okay, in this operation, forming of flat metal sheet into hollow or concave. Listen carefully what I am saying. In this operation, forming of flat metal sheet into hollow or concave shape like a cup is performed by stretching the metal in some regions. A blank holder is used to clamp the blank on the die. The blank holder, you all can see the blank holder. This portion is a blank holder. Okay, blank holder is used to clamp the blank on the die. Okay, this blue color is a die. Okay, while the punch pushes into the sheet metal. Okay, the sheet is drawn into the die hole taking the shape of the cavity. Understood? Next we will be discussing about shearing. So what is shearing? This is nothing but cutting of sheets by shearing action. Cutting of sheets by shearing action. Next we will be discussing about this classification of basic bulk forming processes. So what is bulk forming? Okay, first we will discuss what is bulk forming, then we will proceed with classification of bulk forming. So bulk forming, it is a severe deformation process resulting in massive shape change. What I am saying? Listen carefully. Bulk forming is a severe deformation process resulting in massive shape change. The surface area to volume of the work is relatively small. The surface area to the volume of the work is relatively small. Mostly done in hot working conditions. Okay. So in that classification, we will be discussing classification of basic bulk forming process. So first we will discuss about rolling, next forming, extrusion and wire drawing. First of all, we will be discussing about rolling. Okay, so what is rolling? In this process, you all can see the rolls placed above and below the workpiece. These are the rolls placed above and below the workpiece. Okay, so in this process, the workpiece in the form of slab or a plate is compressed between two rotating rolls. See, the workpiece is, this is the workpiece which is acting as a slab or a plate which is compressed between two rolls, that is above roll and below roll. You are getting what I am telling? Between the two rotating rolls, these rolls will be rotating rolls. Okay. In the thickness direction. In the thickness direction. Okay. See the thickness here and at this position. How much it differs. Okay. So that the thickness is reduced. So you all can see here the thickness. Okay. Here the thickness. Comparatively here it is reduced. Thickness is reduced. Okay. Due to this rolling process. The rotating rolls draw the slab into the gap and compresses it. The final product is in the form of sheet. The final product is in the form of sheet. Next we will be discussing about forging. So you all can see the forging here. The workpiece is compressed between two dies containing shape counters. What I am saying, listen carefully. Shaped counters. See the two dies above and below. So between the two dies the workpiece is compressed. Okay, with the shaped counters. Okay, the die shapes are imparted in the final part. The die shapes are imparted in the final part. You all can see the workpiece position at this and this. Next we will be discussing about extrusion. Okay, next we will be discussing about extrusion. So in this workpiece it is compressed or pushed into the opening to take the shape of the die hole as its cross section. You all can see this workpiece which is in a blue color. Okay, it is pushed or compressed into the opening to take the shape of the die, hole as its cross section. Next one we will be discussing about wire drawing. This wire drawing is nothing but wire drawing or rod drawing. You all can say wire drawing or rod drawing. This is similar to extrusion. You all can see similar to this extrusion. Okay. Similar to extrusion, except that the workpiece is pulled through the die. The workpiece here, you all can see workpiece is pulled through the die opening to take the cross section. Okay, these are the things. Next we will be discussing about forging and its types. Okay, forging and its types. So forging, what is forging? Forging is the operation where the metal is heated and then a force is applied to manipulate the metals into such a way that the required final shape is obtained. See, once again I will tell you all what is forging. Forging is the operation where the metal is heated and then the force is applied to manipulate the metal in such a way that the required final shape is obtained. Forging is generally hot working process. Through cold forging is used sometimes. So here types of forging. First is Smith forging, second drop forging, third one is press forging, and fourth one is machine forging. Okay, so we'll discuss first of all Smith forging. Okay, Smith forging we'll discuss. Okay, so what is Smith forging? This is the traditional forging operation done openly or in openly dies by the village blacksmith. or modern shop floor by a manual hammering or by the power hammer. The process involves heating the stock in the blacksmith hearth and then beating it over the anvil. To get the desired shape, the operator has to manipulate the component in between the blows. The types of operation available are flaring, flattering, bending, upsetting and swagging. The operations available in smith forging is flaring, flattering, bending, upsetting and swagging. Okay. Next one we'll be discussing about drop forging. Okay. Second one we will be discussing about drop forging. So the operation done in a closed impression dies by means of drop hammer. Here the force for shaping the component is applied in a series of blows. So what is drop forging? Drop forging utilizes a closed impression die to obtain the desired shape of the component. The shaping is done by the repeated hammering given to the material in the die cavity. The equipment used for delivering for blows are called drop hammers. The drop forging die consists of two halls. The lower hall of the die is fixed to the anvil of the machine, while the upper hall is fixed to the ram. Okay, fixed to the ram. The heated stock is kept in the lower die while the ram delivers 4 to 5 blows on the metal spreads and completely fills in the die cavity. When the two dies of halls closed, the complete is formed. The typical product obtained in the drop forging are cranks, crankshaft, connecting rods, wrench, crane hooks, etc. See, once again I will repeat what will be obtained with the help of this drop forging: cranks, crankshaft, connecting rods, wrench, crane hooks. Okay, the types of operations are flaring, edging, bending, blocking, finishing and trimming, etc. Okay, next we will be discussing about press forging. Okay, so press forging, it is similar to drop forging. The press forging is also done in closed impression dies with the expectation that the force is continuous squeezing type applied by the hydraulic press. Press forging dies are similar to the drop forging dies, as also the process in the press forging. The metal is shaped not by means of series of blows as in drop forging, but by means of a single continuous squeezing action. What we have seen in a drop forging, that was a series of blows. Okay, series of blows were obtained. Here the continuous squeezing action, single continuous squeezing action will be obtained. This squeezing is obtained by means of hydraulic presses. Because of material gets uniformly deformed throughout its entire depth, the press forging dies with the various impression such as fuller, bender and finisher impression properly arranged. Okay, next we will be discussing about machine forging. Okay, so what is machine forging? Unlike the press or drop forging, where the material is drawn out in a machine forging, the material is only upset to get the desired shape. Okay, as it involves the upsetting operation, sometimes it is simply called as upsetting forging. You are getting what I am telling? Huh? As it involves upsetting operation, sometimes it is known as upsetting forging. Okay, upset forging. Originally, this was developed for making bolt heads in a continuous fashion, but now there are fairly large number of divers. Okay, uses of this process because of the beneficial grain flow obtained from upsetting. It is used for making gears, blanks, shafts, axles, and similar parts. Upsetting machine called upsetter are generally horizontal acting. The die set consists of die and corresponding punch or a heading tool. The die consists of two parts, one called the stationary gripper die, which is fixed to the machine frame, and the other movable gripper die, which moves along with the die slide of the upsetter. Okay, the stock is then held between these two grippers dies. Okay, the upset forging cycle starts with the movable die sliding against the stationary die to grip the stock. The two dies, when in closed position from the necessary die cavity, then the heading tool advance against the stock and upset it to completely filled to the die cavity. Okay, so having completed the upsetting, the heading tool moves back to its back position, or you can say original position. Then the movable gripper die releases the stock by sliding backward. Similar to drop forging, it is not possible to get the final shape in a single pass in a machining forging. Therefore, the operation is carried out in the number of stages. The die cavities is required for the various operations are all arranged vertical on the gripper dies. Okay, the stock is the move from stage one to another in a proper sequence till the final forging is ready. A heading tool each for every upsetting stage is arranged on the heading side of the upsetting machine. A typical upsetting die and heading tool is shown in the next slide. You all can see upsetting die and heading tool. You all can see this. Okay. With this, we'll end up for the today's session. Thank you for the today's session. If you have any doubts, you can call me.